We've seen the SUMIF, COUNTIF and AVERAGEIF in action that allows us to both add, count and work out the mean for selected values within a particular range. Where we can take that functionality one step further is to allow the multiple use of criteria, both in the COUNTIF, the SUMIF and the AVERAGEIF, that will allow us to populate a table like this that we have in our fruit data underscore multiple criteria, where we can ask it to count how many banana sales in January. So instead of counting in one table the banana sales and another table count the January sales, we can count both things at the same time. We effectively check in for bananas in January, apples in January, pears in May, to fill out this whole table of data. In order to use multiple criteria in a COUNTIF function, we actually have to use a slightly different function, which is equals COUNTIF, but then with an S on the end. S. So you're counting multiple criteria. Open brackets. Our criteria range, well, let's check for the months first. So that's month. And the criteria is January, comma. Then we can add in our second criteria range, which is the fruit. And that's going to check for banana, close brackets. Now you could add a third, a fourth and a fifth criteria if you wanted to, if you could make the table make sense in the presentation of the data. But this will now check for F3, which is January, in the blue range, and G2, which is banana, in the purple range, which is our fruit. And we can see that when we press return, that pulls back the value 5. So there are 5 banana sales in January. Now in order to replicate this function throughout the rest of this table, we have to make a couple of amendments to it in the region of making parts of the formula absolute. Now the ranges are absolute, so they're okay. It will always check the right month, it will always check the right fruit columns. But what we want to do is, as we copy this formula down, we need it to check a different month. And as we copy it to the right, we need it to check a different fruit. So as it drags down, we do want it to change the row number. But as we drag it to the right, we don't want it to change column F. So in this case, we fix column F with a single dollar in front of it, but we leave the 3 relative, so the 3 can change. With the fruit reference, we want that to move along. So as it goes to the right, we want it to move from G to H, but what we don't want to happen as it comes down is to move from row 2. The name of the fruit will always be in row 2. So we fix that with a dollar in front of the 2. So we're part fixing 2 sections of this function. The result is, if I now take that function, I can copy it and paste it into the whole table. And it quite happily, if I pick on pears in July, it quite happily references the correct fruit, the correct month, and looks in the correct ranges. So by dollaring up in the right places, I can take one formula and paste it into this whole table. So that's the COUNTIF with multiple criteria, both checking a row and a column value. I can do a similar thing with the SUMIF. So I now want to add up how many sales for bananas in January and apples in February, etc. So it's equals SUMIF, but it's the plural, so it's ifs, open brackets. Now you'll see there's a single sum range. We can't start adding up different ranges, but we can have multiple criteria. So I certainly only want to add one sum range, and that's the sales, comma. Then my first criteria is the month range, and we're going to look for January, comma. The second criteria is going to be looking in the fruit range, and that's going to take that cell there, and then close brackets. Again, just like the COUNTIFs, you can have a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth criteria. So here in the SUMIF, I'm adding up the sales values, so they're in blue, where F3, so the purple, is in the red range, and G2, so the tulip pink, is in the green range, the fruit. And that will work for us and tell us that we sold $120 worth of bananas in January. Just like the COUNTIF, I then need to add dollars in the appropriate place so that I can copy and paste this formula without having to retype it. So I need to dollar up the months so that they do not change their column as we copy this formula. So it's $F, and we need to dollar up the row of the fruit reference so that it too doesn't change as I copy and paste. So we can then copy that formula, highlight all of the cells we want to paste into, and paste. And we can see the total dollar value for each fruit in each month. Again, a quick double check of a couple of them. This one here is selecting strawberries in September, and that's correct. And this one here is apples in November. So we know that the function is working and that we've dollared in the right places so that when we paste, it still continues to work in the right cells. Now the last sheet, the AVERAGEIF, is very similar to the SUMIF. So very similar, I'm actually going to copy that cell there, the banana one, come to AVERAGEIF and paste. Now the name sales already exists. Click yes to use that version of the name, or no to rename the version of sales you're moving or copying. That's because we're copying a formula that references a different sheet. So I want to keep the same name and month and fruit, and then the formula pastes in and we still get 120. All I need to now do is change the SUMIFs to AVERAGEIFs. Same average range, so it's looking down the sales column, it's checking January in the month column and bananas in the fruit column. I already also have the dollars in the right place, so if this formula works on the average, I can carry on and do a copy and paste into all of the cells. The average value of the banana sales in January is $24. We can then copy and paste that AVERAGEIFs function throughout that whole little table. And it works out the average dollar value. Pick on the kiwis. So average dollar value for kiwis sold in June is 46.2. So that's AVERAGEIFs, SUMIFs, and COUNTIFs. We need that extra S at the end to then be able to allow us to define secondary and tertiary criteria.